It would be wrong, inaccurate, and frankly disgusting to say that the 2015 film Furious 7 was anything less than a roaring success that made buku banana bucks. Usually 7 movies deep into your franchise, you're making straight to DVD dog shit with 0 original cast members, and you're proudly announcing on the poster that the boom mic operator from the second film worked on this one. So for the 7th Fast and Furious film to not just be well received, but be the best received yet, is a landmark occasion no matter how you slice it. Now yes, we were only months away from the 7th Star Wars movie blowing Furious 7 completely out of the well-received 7th installment of a franchise releasing in 2015 conversation, but I will say it with my entire chest. Furious 7 is better than The Force Awakens. I'm glad The Force was awake because I certainly wasn't. Honk shoe, bitch. The Last Jedi was the best sequel trilogy film, and yes, it sucks. Anyway, most studios and movie-making people would be ecstatic that their movie did better than several developing countries, but the people at the Fast and the Furious were kinda like, oh fuck, now what? See, in case you missed it, Furious 7 had a bit of a tumultuous production. Mostly because Paul Walker, the feller who played Brian O'Connor, the main character, ironically died in a car accident in real life and had to be written out of the franchise.
I have to go now. My planet needs me.
Meaning that all of the plans they had made for future installments had to be thrown out and they would have to find a way to keep the lights on. The lights cost several $100 million in this analogy. With the rest of the main cast now taking the spotlight without White Boy Awesome here to be the lead, a lot of people kinda just expected that they might just be done, everyone would go their separate ways. Vin Diesel would make more movies based off his D&D character, Michelle Rodriguez would be in more Blood Rain movies, I don't know what Tyrese does in his time off, piss people off for not paying his child support I guess. The fuck do y'all care, it's not your kid. It's a real double standard in this society that Tyrese gets shit on for not paying child support. Meanwhile, Paul Walker, a white man, hasn't paid his in like 12 years, and oh, everyone loves Paul Walker, bum ass. But an 8th movie had already been confirmed all the way back in 2014, so come high or hell water, they'd have to figure out something. Is James Wan coming back? No? Can't imagine why. Did you not have fun on 7? Was it a stressful production? What about Justin Lin? I mean, the franchise owes everything to him. It was on death's door before Lin. No? He's too busy making Star Trek? Well, shit, I don't know, is the guy who directed Friday available? F. Gary Gray, no, I'm not mad at him, that's just his name. Now I know what you're thinking, why is the director of Cypress Hills When the Ship Goes Down music video in charge of this monumental film? Well, twerp, he's actually a pretty well-accomplished film director who has done a ton of stuff that isn't even R&B and hip-hop music videos. I don't know why you're dissing on it though, the TLC Waterfalls music video is on his resume, and that shit is great. Looks like Terminator 2. Fresh off the success of Straight Outta Compton and with a decent catalog under his belt, he was the one in charge of this picture. Gray had worked with a number of cast members in the past, Vin Diesel in A Man Apart, Dwayne Johnson in Be Cool, Jason Statham and Charlize Theron in The Italian Job, and Jada Pinkett Smith in Set It Off. Wait, hang on, my bad. She's not in any Fast and Furious films. I just thought she was because she's bald. But I have heard that Jada Pinkett Smith is going to be in a sequel to G.I. Jane. Can't wait to see it. But this movie isn't bald. In fact, I'd say there's plenty of tread on its tires. Chris Morgan was obviously back in the writer's chair, I assume. Actually, I haven't checked, hang on. Okay, yeah, he did. He's still the sole writer. Fate of the Furious takes the franchise to a dark place, you might say, but also not an unfamiliar one. The big twist this time is, Dom's gone rogue! Dom has turned his back on family and betrayed everyone. Loyalties will be tested, cars will go vroom, and at least 40% of this movie will be a backdoor pilot for a future spin-off featuring Dwayne Johnson and Jason Statham. What? What do you mean it sounds similar to Fast 6 when Letty went rogue? What? I'll kill you. But don't get it twisted, this movie, despite what you might think, is actually one of the deepest films I've ever seen. And trust me, I've seen at least 7 movies. Wait, hang on a second. It's a challenging film for a lot of people to accept. Bad guys become good guys. Good guys become bad guys who are actually good guys. And worst of all, Dom is the bad guy. The timeline also gets completely destroyed by a baby. We'll get into that in a minute. Alright, let's get into it. Quick plot rundown. Dom is blackmailed by super hacker extraordinaire Charlize Theron with white dreads. Is this a reference to The Matrix? Yes it was, whether they knew it or not, it is. Dom is forced to betray everyone he loves to help her steal an EMP, nuclear launch codes, and finally, a Russian nuclear submarine, so Charlize Theron can use them to blackmail the world into staying in line. You see, Cypher is a riff on vigilante hacker groups such as Anonymous, except Anonymous kinda just DDoSes websites and makes spooky videos. Fucking dweebs.
I got a message for you. The thing is that I'm actually horny. You know what's up?
In theory, a deranged maniac with a nuclear arsenal that could use to threaten the world into being a better place sounds like a perfect system, but Cypher's not exactly the benevolent peacekeeper she makes herself out to be. The way she managed to manipulate Dom into being her lapdog was by kidnapping his ex Elena and her baby infant son, who was actually his son? What? Dom has an infant son with Elena? Well, I guess he does still care about family. He only betrayed his family for other family. But wait, what? How is their child a baby? Doesn't that not make any sense at all? Let's go back in the timeline and do some investigation. Dom and Elena broke up in Fast 6 when Letty was revealed to not actually be dead. We can use Brian and Mia's son as a unit of measurement to track how much time is passing between movies. Jack O'Connor is born at the beginning of Fast 6 and is still a baby at the end. Then the next time we see him in Furious 7, he's like 3 to 4 years old, meaning it's been a few years. Right? Well, at the start of Furious 7, Deckard Shaw is visiting Owen at the hospital, presumably pretty soon after his injury in Fast 6. I find it unlikely that Shaw waited 3 to 4 years to visit Owen and get his revenge and kill Han in Tokyo Drift. Plus, Owen's injuries would likely be far better healed after multiple years. It's realistically only been a few months between 6 and 7. But then why is Jack O'Connor in preschool when he should only be like a year and a half old? Chris Morgan, what the fuck are you doing? So either Jack O'Connor is aging at a rapidly accelerated rate, or Dom's son is aging at a rapidly decelerated rate and is a 4-year-old infant baby. Or there actually was 3 to 4 years between 6 and 7, and Deckard Shaw did wait several years to get revenge on Han, and Dom is having an affair with Elena and this baby was born like a year ago. Or theory 4, this is just a random baby that has no relation to Dom whatsoever, and he just has not considered that. It's a real bad sign going forward when the guy making a video called Understanding Fate of the Furious is confused and doesn't understand what's happening anymore. Wait, that was a huge aside. The point is, Cypher is a crazy wacko who needs to be beaten to death with hammers. But you could say that about anyone who's powerful and in control of nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons, while scary as fuck, are technically useful war deterrents. Nobody wants to get nuked. The mere threat is enough to get world leaders to go back to the negotiation table and kiss each other and caress their elderly penises. Is fear and chaos an ethical method to inspire positive change in the world? These are the questions Fate of the Furious dares to ask. Fate of the Furious is all about control, manipulation, and change. A wise man once said, "Cha-cha-cha-cha-cha changes." That man was Shrek 2. Change had come not just in the absence of Brian and Mia, or Dom's heel turn, or Dom's timeline-shattering son, but in the numerous other status quo shakeups. Just from 6 through 8 we lost Brian, Mia, Han, and that other one. And these two just aren't involved ever anymore. Ah shit, wait, never mind, they're actually in this movie for 7 seconds. Wow. There they are, look at them. Look at them go. The family shrank more than people realized, and so with Dom now off the team, it's just Letty, Ludacris, and Roman. Yeah, oh yeah, and Ramsey. She stuck around after 7. I like her. She's not that great of a character, but she's really hot, and you can see her naked in Game of Thrones. Point is, new blood needed to be brought in to flesh out the team. There's a new Brian named Little Nobody, the assistant or understudy or something to Mr. Nobody. He's pretty clearly supposed to be the new Brian. Look at him. all white and secret agent and shit. They even put him in Subarus. You thought I wouldn't notice. You thought you could just have another white guy in the movie with a totally different name, occupation, personality, and dynamic with the team, and I would just think that's Brian? I don't know who the fuck this guy is, and I'm about to abuse substances because I'm afraid. You thought I would just accept him? He's not my dad and never will be. Little Nobody, as he's mockingly referred to, is played by legacy actor Scott Eastwood, son of Clint Eastwood, a Hollywood pretty boy with maybe one of the worst resumes I've ever seen. He's here to play the straight man, which, if you've been paying attention to these films, is not a role that is needed. We gay here. He doesn't really add much to the movie, just a solid all-arounder, a reliable tight end. He can drive, punch, shoot, whatever you need. He's the new pretty white boy tier 1 operator, but this puta is never bagging any Fennerme Highness because the only sauce he has is McDonald's mustard. Peh. So we talked about Brian's replacement, but what about Brian? He's not dead in the universe of these movies, he's just off raising his family. In theory, letting him have a happy ending is a really nice idea. They didn't want to make the characters lose him too. But this causes a lot of awkwardness in the franchise going forward. He can never get involved in the bodacious plots that unfold, even if it makes no sense for him to just be chilling at home. Oh, what's that? Dom turned rogue? Dom? The man I love more than my wife? That's crazy. Cause I don't give a fuck. Maybe they should have trapped him in like a mirror dimension like in Sonichu. Some sort of wacky explanation for how he can be alive and fine but unable to help out. Maybe Jumanji him. Brian's absence gets even weirder at the end when Dom introduces his son to everyone and announces his name for the first time.
Meet Brian.
He named his son after his brother-in-law who is still alive and he still probably sees pretty often and probably runs Fortnite duos with him once or twice a month. It's sweet in theory, but it is a little weird, and as many people have pointed out, this tribute probably would have worked better if he named his son Paul. He could look off in the distance and say, I'm naming him after an old friend. I mean, look, it's not the weirdest thing ever. People name their kids after friends or loved ones all the time, regardless of if that person is still alive. Hell, even within this series, Vince named his son Dominic after Dom. Hey, isn't Vince dead because of shit Dom wrapped him up in? Maybe you could pay tribute to your best friend whose death you're partially responsible for and name him Vince. Dom actually has a lot of dead friends who it would make sense to pay tribute to, including Elena. Could have named him Elenos, give him a Greek-ass name. But I suppose Brian did ultimately save him from the consequences of his own actions, so whatever, I guess Brian makes sense. And I guess in-universe naming him Paul makes a lot less sense, but the tribute is obviously supposed to be more for us, the fans, than the characters themselves. Look, I'm just against having multiple characters in the same series go by the same name. It gets clunkier than it needs to be, but I'll live, damn it, alright? But whatever, Brian's been reborn as Dom's son, which is what he always really wanted anyway. Another wise man once said, Sha-Allah, head Shala. That man was Dragon Ball Z. In Dragon Ball, it was a recurring bit that the villain of one arc would end up joining Goku and becoming his ally, usually to defeat a bigger villain, but they almost always ended up staying aligned with the good guys, realizing that this guy was too whimsical and pure heart and stronger than fuck to ever want to go up against again. In Fate of the Furious, Jason Statham, the villain of Furious 7, who murdered Han in cold blood in the streets of Tokyo, joins the family and helps them take down Dom and Cypher. Thanks to this man, Han will never be in any of these movies ever again ever because he's dead and will not come back ever. This was a tough pill to swallow for a lot of people. Was it not but one movie ago that Dom said, "Words ain't even been invented," in regards to what he was gonna do to him? Turns out those words were actually barbecue. But all jokes aside, this reverse heel turn is more or less what the movie is about. Change and redemption. In the opening scene of the film, Dom and Letty are on their honeymoon in Cuba. In canon, they got married in like 2009, but it's like 2016 or 17 in this movie, but fuck it, it's their honeymoon. And Dom's cousin is about to lose his car to this loan shark. So Dom challenges him to a good old-fashioned street race through the streets of Cuba in these old 1950s cars. Dom obviously wins by turning his cousin's car into a flaming missile and finishing Takumi style, but the important part is after this race. Dom won this guy's car fair and square, but he says keep it, and instead gives his cousin his own car. When questioned about this later by Cypher, Dom says, "It was about something bigger. This way, changed him, presenting Dom as a sort of Christ-like messiah out to change hearts and minds and impart wisdom and teachings. The old Dom from the first and fourth films never would have done that. He'd have taken the car, but probably also taken a piss in the loser's mouth. Dom was a renegade maniac who didn't give a shit about anything else but his wild playtime. It was destructive and it got people killed, hurt, and ruined lives. But thanks to blaming Brian for everything, he didn't have to learn the error of his ways until Letty died. It took him losing Letty to understand that, and maybe in his older and wiser years, he's come to see himself in the troubled manic youth around him and wants to try and stop them from making his mistakes. And in a way, this is sort of manipulation. Or influence. Some sort of situation where one person does something and it makes other people do something else. You can do both positive and negative influence depending on if you're a saint or a scumbag. Cypher's whole thing is control, and it doesn't get any more on the nose than the iconic zombie car scene, where she remotely takes over hundreds of cars in New York to chase after Russians who have a nuclear football. I could nitpick for over 19 seconds about how autopilot technology was not this widespread in 2017, or how these cars wouldn't have had it anyway, but we're 8 movies into the series. If you haven't realized that rule of cool is the law, you're dumber than you think these movies are. This shit is so gas. I could keep going on about the control motif or whatever, but I think you get the point. So let's take a break and discuss the action before I actually write a paragraph about how the EMP is a literal symbol for taking away power. Ain't nobody want to hear that shit. The action in this movie is a lot of fun, but it is not as good as Furious 7. Furious 7's action came from the soul. That movie was written by a dog. This movie was written by like a crocodile or something. The Hobbs and Shaw prison break scene, Kino, absolute cinema. Genuinely pretty great choreography, like he does the slide into the gate, then roll. It's fantastic. When I covered Furious 7, I didn't really talk enough about how good Jason Statham is. Not just in these movies, but just in general. People do not put enough respect on his name in the action genre. Ever seen The Transporter? Amazing. Beekeeper, tons of fun. Crank 1 and 2, maybe the best movies of all time. Stop sleeping on Jason Statham, he's the man. Early on in the film, Ludacris uses a wrecking ball against German police. That's a bit fucking excessive, don't you think?
He's fucking dead.
Is Hobbs just okay with this? Isn't he supposed to be like the good guy? For my money, the absolute best action scene is when, of course, Jason Statham and Owen Shaw rescue Dom's son from Cypher's plane. Yeah, Owen's back. The main villain from 6 is also helping out the man who's responsible for ruining his life and maiming him. Owen was such an evil bastard in Fast 6. Remember when he's just running over people with a tank? Well, I guess you could say this good deed is a real Shaw tank redemption. We're gonna sit with that one for a little bit. No, but seriously though, Owen Shaw is maybe the most outwardly evil character in the entire franchise. I mean, according to Braga, he was in charge of their cartel and ran a global ring of trafficking guns, drugs, money, and women. He's directly and indirectly responsible for likely hundreds of thousands of deaths and the suffering of potentially millions of people, and saving Dom's son doesn't make up for that. They should not be giving him a pardon under any circumstances. This man is the devil. While we're here, I might as well bring up some little retcons this movie introduced. At one point, Jason Statham reveals that Cypher came to him first to steal the Nightshade device, the MacGuffin from Fast 6. But when he said no, she went to Owen instead. So we can file that information away under extremely important lore. I think we also later learned that Letty has met this ginger guy who works for Cypher. They met while she was working with Owen because he wanted them to steal the Nightshade device, which they were doing. So once again, file that away under important. And he was also linked to Jakande from Furious 7, which means Cypher was the mastermind behind the last 2 films. So the idea is basically that Dom had foiled her schemes too many times, and she had to take him out of the equation. Alright, lots of important information revealed here. Anyway, back to the Shaw Brothers rescue mission. They arrive on jetpacks, and it's not even the most remarkable thing about this scene. It's a full-out gunfight where Jason Statham has to be holding an infant car seat and protecting them. It's something like straight out of like a Hong Kong movie. Like, I haven't seen this many babies in absurdly dangerous action movie scene situations since John Woo's Hard Boiled. Then, of course, you got the submarine, Russian, ice, Roman drives a Lamborghini on the ice, and it's funny. They do their little Mission Impossible, disarm the nukes, then Dom returns to the side of love and peace, and Cypher shoots a heat-seeking missile at him, and Dom's like, activate flame mode, and ramps off the submarine so the missile explodes it. This scene can basically be read as an allegory for the Cuban Missile Crisis. Dom learned the power of a car on fire back in Cuba, and this nuclear sub, and this is a crisis. And I don't know what the fuck I'm doing anymore. The series is spelled out of control and grasping at nothing here. Fate of the Furious was once again a huge success, earning $1.2 billion worldwide. It was the third highest money-making film of 2017, and for a while, it was the 11th highest grossing film of all time. Today, it sits at 27th. It was, for the most part, pretty well received. People enjoyed the goofy, over-the-top action and chemistry of the characters. The filmmakers had done what they set out to do, prove that nothing could stop them. These movies can, and as far as we know, will keep coming out forever. As long as there's a gaggle of bald men driving cars and quipping, they could just keep pumping these out, an infinite money-making machine with unlimited miles. The only limit is their imagination, or Vin Diesel becoming too fat and bald to keep going. Behind the scenes though, trouble had been brewing. If you pay close attention, you may have noticed that Vin Diesel and Dwayne Johnson don't really interact ever in this movie. They're only in the same shot once in the entire film, and that's the only direct conversation they ever have. In August of 2016, during the filming of this movie, Dwayne Johnson would post on Instagram, "Some male co-stars conduct themselves as stand-up men and true professionals, while others don't. The one that don't are too chicken shit to do anything about it anyway. Candy asses." When you watch this movie next April and it seems like I'm not acting in some of these scenes and my blood is legit boiling, you're right. This is the first the world would know of the feud that had developed between Dwayne Johnson and Vin Diesel, and it's far from over. In fact, there was supposed to be a post-credit scene to this movie featuring Jason Statham and The Rock having some banter, kind of a tease for what was coming next, but Vin Diesel reportedly demanded it be removed. The spotlight was shifting away from him, and he didn't like that. Wait, why is the movie even called Fate of the Furious? What was the Fate of the Furious anyway? Nobody died and nothing decisive or final happened to them. Did they just call it that because you put the F next to the 8 and it's...
The pussy tonight.